I used to think online classifieds were harmless. Cheap furniture, used electronics, old tools, the kind of place where people sold things they didn't need anymore because moving was too expensive, storage units were too full, or life had simply changed. I had bought plenty of things that way before. A coffee table from a college student who was leaving town, a bicycle from a man who barely looked up from his phone, a floor lamp from an older couple who kept apologizing because the bulb was dead. Nothing strange ever happened. At worst, someone wasted your time. At best, you saved money. That was all I thought about when I saw the listing. Storage unit clean out. Everything must go. Cash only. Pick up tonight. The pictures were bad. Blurry, dim. Clearly taken in a hurry. A metal shelf. A stack of plastic bins. A toolbox. A few rolled rugs. Some old lamps. A wooden dresser with one drawer slightly open. But in the corner of one picture, barely visible behind a leaning mattress, I saw a black equipment case, the kind used for cameras. At the time, I was trying to start a small side business filming events. Weddings, birthdays, anything people would pay for. I didn't have the money for good gear, so I was always searching used listings. I zoomed in on the photo. The case had foam lining. That alone was enough to make me message the seller. I asked if the black case was still available. The reply came less than a minute later. Yes, must take other items with it. I asked what was inside. The seller replied, not sure, belonged to previous tenant. That should have been the first thing that made me hesitate. Previous tenant, not my brother, not my friend, not my old stuff. But I ignored it. I asked the price. $80 for everything in the corner. Tonight only. I couldn't believe it. Even an empty case like that could be worth more than $80. I asked where to meet. The seller sent an address on the edge of town in an industrial area full of storage buildings, auto shops, and warehouses. Then another message came in. Come alone. Gate closes soon. That made me pause. I stared at the words for a while. Come alone. I almost backed out. But then I told myself people wrote weird things online all the time. Maybe he meant not to bring a truck full of people. Maybe the storage place had rules. Maybe he was just impatient. I replied that I could be there in 30 minutes. He only sent back a thumbs up. By the time I got there, the sun was almost gone. The storage facility sat behind a chain-link fence topped with dull barbed wire. Half the security lights were on. The other half flickered or stayed dark completely. The front office was closed. A keypad stood beside the gate. Before I could message the seller, the gate started opening. No one was standing near. I drove in slowly. The rows of storage units stretched ahead like narrow concrete streets. My headlights washed over metal doors, faded numbers, and puddles from rain earlier that day. My phone buzzed. Row G, Unit 19. I drove deeper inside. The farther I went, the quieter everything became. No traffic sounds. No voices. Just the crunch of my tires on gravel and the soft hum of my engine. When I reached Row G, I saw one unit open near the end. A single battery lantern sat on the ground inside. A man stood beside it. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s. Average height. Work boots. Dark hoodie. Baseball cap pulled low. He didn't wave. He just watched me park. I got out and tried to act casual. Hey, I'm here for the camera case. He nodded once. It's in there. His voice was flat. Not rude exactly. Just empty. I looked past him into the unit. It was packed, but not like someone had carefully stored their belongings. It looked like things had been thrown in during a panic. Furniture leaned at strange angles. Trash bags were stacked against the wall. A broken mirror faced inward. Several plastic bins were labeled with masking tape, but the writing had been scratched out. The black case sat near the back. I pointed at it. That one. He nodded again. You take the case, the shelf, and the bins next to it. 80. I didn't want the bins or shelf, but I figured I could deal with them later. Can I look inside the case first? He stared at me for just a second too long. Then he said, Go ahead. I stepped into the unit. The air inside smelled wrong, not like mildew or dust. more like old clothes sealed in plastic with something sour underneath. I crouched by the case and opened the latches. Inside was a camera. Not new, but much better than anything I owned. There were 2 lenses, batteries, memory cards, and a small audio recorder. My heart jumped. This was easily worth hundreds. Maybe more. I tried not to look excited. "Yeah," I said, "I'll take it." The man held out his hand. I gave him the cash. He didn't count it. He just folded it once and put it in his pocket. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "You didn't see me." I looked up. "What?" "If anyone asks, the unit was open." I gave a nervous laugh because I didn't know what else to do. "Is there some issue with the owner or something?" He stared at me again. Then he said, "You want the stuff or not?" I should have walked away. I know that now. Instead, I loaded the case, 2 plastic bins, and a metal shelf in my car as quickly as possible. The man stood there the whole time, not helping, not checking his phone, just watching. When I closed my trunk, he reached down, picked up the lantern, and pulled the storage unit door down. The last thing I saw before the door shut was the broken mirror inside. For 1 second, in the reflection, it looked like someone was standing behind the stacked furniture. A pale shape, tall, still. Then the door slammed shut. I turned around fast. There was no one there. The man locked the unit and walked away without another word. I got in my car and drove toward the gate. It opened before I reached it. Again, no one was near the keypad. I remember thinking that was convenient. Now, I wonder if someone had been watching the cameras. When I got home, I carried the camera case inside first. I should have left everything in the trunk. I should have waited until daylight, but I was excited. I set the case on my kitchen table and inspected everything. The camera powered on. The lenses were clean. There were 4 memory cards tucked into a mesh pocket. I put one into my laptop. At first, it looked normal. There were videos of houses, not home videos, walkthroughs, empty rooms, basements, backyards, hallways. The camera moved slowly through each place like someone documenting real estate. But there were no people, no talking, no explanation. Each file was named only by date and time. The first few were boring. Then I noticed something. In every video, the camera eventually stopped on a window, sometimes from inside the house, sometimes from outside. And every time, the person filming zoomed in on the lock. Window locks, back door locks, garage side doors, basement entrances. My excitement faded. I clicked another video. This one showed the inside of a small apartment. The camera moved through the living room, down a hallway, and into a bedroom. There were clothes on the bed, a cup of water on the nightstand, a phone charger plugged into the wall. Someone lived there. The camera turned toward the closet. The door was open. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the camera operator stepped inside the closet and turned around. The view faced the bed. The video continued for 40 minutes. No movement, no sound except breathing. Then the bedroom door opened. A woman walked in, an adult woman. She was on the phone, laughing quietly. The person filming did not move. The woman never noticed. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were cold. I sat there staring at the black screen. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was staged. Maybe it was some kind of low-budget horror project. Maybe the previous tenant was a creep. But that didn't mean anything to me. I had just bought used equipment. That was all. Then I remember the bins. They were still in my trunk. I went outside and opened one. Inside were more things. Not valuables. Keys. Dozens of keys. Some on single rings. Some labeled with apartment numbers. Some labeled only with initials. There were also small notebooks. I opened one. Each page had the same kind of notes. Times people left. Times people returned. Which lights stayed on. Which windows were usually unlocked. Which neighbors smoked outside. Which dogs barked. One page had a line written at the bottom. Does not wake easily. I closed the notebook. The second bin was worse. There were wallets without cash. Driver's licenses. Employee badges. Receipts. Photos cut from greeting cards. Pieces of mail. Nothing from children. Everyone was clearly an adult, but everything felt stolen from private lives. Small proof that someone had been watching, collecting, practicing. I carried both bins inside because I was afraid to leave them in my car. Then I did what I should have done immediately. I called the police non-emergency number. I explained that I had bought used items from a storage unit and found suspicious property. The person on the phone asked where I got it. I gave the address. There was a pause. Then they asked for the unit number. I told them. Another pause. Then they asked if I was currently safe. That question changed everything. I said yes. They told me officers would come by. While I waited, I put everything back in the bins. I didn't touch the memory cards again. I didn't want to see any more. But the audio recorder was still sitting on the table. It had a tiny screen. One file loaded on it. I know I shouldn't have pressed play. I still did. For the first few seconds, there was only static, then breathing, then a faint tapping sound, like fingernails on wood. A man whispered, very close to the microphone. She locks the top one now. Silence. Then another voice answered, not the same voice. Then use the bathroom window. My throat tightened. There had been two of them. The recording continued. The second voice said, "Did she see you?" The first voice whispered, "No." Then there was a soft laugh. I stopped the recording. I backed away from the table like the device itself was dangerous. A knock came at my door 20 minutes later. Two officers stood outside. I showed them everything. They were professional, but I could tell the mood changed as soon as they saw the licenses and notebooks. One officer asked me to describe the cellar. I did. The other asked if I still had the listing open. I pulled it up. The listing was gone. The account was deleted. They took the bins, the camera, the recorder, and the memory cards. Before they left, one officer asked if the seller had said anything unusual. I told them, "You didn't see me." The officer wrote that down. Then he asked, "Did he see where you live?" I said no. I had met him at the storage facility. The officer looked toward my driveway. "Did he follow you?" I wanted to say no immediately, but I couldn't because I hadn't checked. I had been too excited about the camera. They told me to keep my doors locked and call if anything strange happened. That was the kind of advice that sounds helpful until you realize it means they are worried too. I barely slept that night. Every sound in the apartment felt amplified. The refrigerator clicking on, a car passing outside, the pipes shifting in the walls. Around 3 a.m., I heard something that made me sit up, a soft scrape from the front door. I held my breath. It came again. Not a knock, not a bang, a careful scraping sound near the lock. I grabbed my phone and walked quietly into the hallway. The peephole was dark. I had a porch light, but it wasn't on. I always left it on. I called emergency services. While the phone rang, the scraping stopped. Then something slid under the door, a small white envelope. I backed away from it. The dispatcher answered. I whispered that someone was at my door. They told me officers were on the way. I stayed in the hallway, staring at the envelope. No footsteps left. No car started. Nothing. When the police arrived, they checked outside and found no one. The porch light bulb had been loosened just enough to go dark. The envelope had one thing inside, a photograph. It showed me in the storage unit, crouched over the black camera case. The photo had been taken from inside the unit, from behind the stacked furniture. In the lower corner, someone had written, "Wrong box." I moved out 2 days later. Not officially, not neatly. I packed what mattered and stayed with someone I trusted. The police called me several times over the next few weeks. They asked more questions. They showed me photo lineups. They asked if I recognized certain vehicles. They never told me everything, but I learned enough. The storage unit had not been rented by the man who sold me the items. The actual renter had vanished months earlier. The facility owner claimed the unit was supposed to be locked and untouched. The security cameras for Row G had stopped recording the week before I arrived. The gate access logs showed no code used when I entered or left. And Unit 19, the one I went into, had been empty when officers checked it. Not cleaned out, empty, swept, bleached. No broken mirror. No furniture. No mattress. Nothing. The man I met was never found. At least, not that I know of. But the worst part came later. One of the officers eventually told me that some of the stolen items had been connected to open stalking and burglary cases across several towns. People had reported the feeling of being watched. Missing keys. Doors unlocked from the inside. Closet doors left open. Bedroom windows cracked after being closed. Nothing dramatic enough to make the news. Nothing that sounded believable until all the pieces were found together. The camera case had not been the valuable thing in the unit. It had been bait or a mistake. I still don't know which. For months after that, I stopped buying anything used online. I changed apartments, changed my number, deleted every account I used for local buying and selling. I checked my locks 3 times every night. Then one evening, almost a year later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the classifieds again. Not to buy, just to look. I typed in storage cleanout. There were hundreds of listings. Old furniture, boxes of clothes, used tools, nothing unusual. Then I saw one posted only 6 minutes earlier. No profile picture, no seller history. The title read, "Everything must go. Pick up tonight." The photos were blurry. A shelf, a rug, a few plastic bins. And in the corner, half hidden behind a leaning mattress, was a black equipment case. My stomach dropped. I clicked the listing. The description was only one sentence. Previous buyer took wrong box. I reported it immediately. Then I refreshed the page. The listing was gone. That night, I checked every window, every closet, every lock. When I got to the bathroom, I noticed a small frosted window above the shower was open. Only an inch. I never opened that window. I grabbed a chair and pushed it shut. That was when something fell from the windowsill into the tub. A key, not mine. There was a strip of masking tape wrapped around it. In handwriting I recognized from the notebooks, it said, "Now you have one of ours." I moved again after that. Farther away, different city, different job, different everything. I wish I could say it ended there. But the truth is, once someone like that knows you exist, you never really know if it's over. Sometimes I'll hear a soft tap at night and tell myself it's the building settling. Sometimes I'll find a closet door open and convince myself I forgot to close it. Sometimes I'll see an online listing with bad photos and a price too low to make sense, and I'll feel that same cold pressure in my chest. Because I understand something now that I didn't before. Online classifieds are built on trust. You trust the photo is real. You trust the address is safe. You trust the person selling the item is just a person. You trust that when someone says everything must go, they mean furniture, boxes, and old junk. Not evidence. Not someone's private life. Not a trail they need a stranger to carry away. And not something that was never supposed to be found. So when I see a listing that says cash only, pick up tonight, storage clean out, I don't click it anymore. I don't message. I don't ask questions. Because somewhere out there, someone is still cleaning out units that don't belong to them. Someone is still taking blurry pictures in the dark. Someone is still waiting for the right buyer. And maybe the scariest part is that they don't need to break into your home first. Sometimes, all they have to do is post an ad and wait for you to come to them. The listing went up at 1:12 a.m. Night security position. Cash paid daily. No experience needed. That alone should have told me something was wrong. No real company name. No logo. No address listed publicly. Just a blurry photo of an empty parking lot taken through a windshield at night. At the time, I was desperate for extra money. My rent had just gone up. My car needed work. And my regular job had cut everyone's hours after the holidays. I'd been scrolling through online classifieds every night looking for side work, moving help, warehouse cleanup, furniture assembly, anything. Most of it paid terribly. This one didn't. The ad claimed it paid $300 per night in cash. All you had to do was watch a property during overnight renovation. No license required. No background check. No interview. That should have been enough for me to close the app. Instead, I messaged the seller. The reply came immediately. You available tonight? I said yes. Another message appeared. Need someone reliable. Can you stay awake all night? I remember laughing at that. At the time, I thought it sounded like easy money. I told him I could. The seller sent an address outside town, near a row of old commercial buildings and warehouses. Then came another message. Do not leave the property until sunrise. I asked why. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, the seller wrote, people steal materials. That sounded reasonable enough. I agreed. A few seconds later, they sent one last message. If anyone knocks, do not let them inside. I almost backed out right there, but I needed the money. So around 10:30 that night, I drove out to the address. The farther I got from the city, the emptier the roads became. Most of the buildings in the area looked abandoned. Old mechanic shops, storage yards, empty loading docks with broken lights hanging overhead. The property I was supposed to watch sat behind a rusted chain link fence. It used to be some kind of office building, 2 stories tall, flat roof, most of the windows blacked out from inside. A white cargo van sat near the entrance. Its engine was running. A man stepped out as I parked. Adult male, mid-40s maybe, heavy jacket, gloves, baseball cap. He walked toward me quickly like he was already late for something. You here for the night job? I said yes. He nodded and immediately handed me a flashlight and a ring of keys. No paperwork, no questions, nothing. He pointed toward the building. Just stay inside until sunrise. That's it. That's it. I looked past him toward the building. Several windows on the second floor were covered with plywood from the inside. Why are the windows boarded up? Renovation. He said it too fast. I asked where everyone else was. No one else is coming. Something about that answer bothered me. I should have trusted that feeling. Instead, I asked when I'd get paid. The man pulled 3 folded $100 bills from his pocket and handed them to me immediately. Half now, half tomorrow if everything's fine. I stared at the cash. Real money, crisp bills. That was enough to keep me there. The man pointed toward the front entrance. There's food in the break room. Bathroom works. Don't go on the roof. I frowned. Why? The stairs aren't safe. Again, too quick, too rehearsed. Then he looked directly at me and said something that stayed in my head the entire night. If somebody knocks, ignore them, even if they say they work here. Before I could ask anything else, he got into the van and drove away. I stood there alone in the parking lot, listening to the engine fade into the distance. The silence afterward felt enormous. I unlocked the building and stepped inside. The air smelled like wet drywall and old carpet. Most of the first floor was empty except for stacked construction materials and plastic sheets hanging over doorways. But there were strange things too. Several office chairs had been arranged facing the lobby windows. Not randomly, perfectly lined up, like people had been sitting there watching outside. I told myself construction workers probably moved them. Still, it bothered me. The break room was near the back. Inside sat a folding table, a coffee maker, bottled water, and a small cooler full of sandwiches. Someone had clearly prepared for a long stay. I checked my phone. 1 bar of signal. Barely anything. Great. I spent the first hour walking around with the flashlight, trying to learn the layout. The first floor contained old offices, conference rooms, and storage closets. The second floor felt different. Most doors were shut. Some had handwritten labels taped to them. Do not enter. Electrical. Floor damage. One hallway had black plastic stapled over it entirely. I noticed another thing too. Every single window on the second floor had been covered from the inside, not for renovation. For privacy. Around midnight, I heard the first knock. 3 slow taps on the front glass doors. I froze. The sound echoed through the lobby. I turned off my flashlight instinctively. Another knock came. Then a voice. Hello, adult male, muffled through the glass. Anybody inside? I stayed silent. The man outside tried the door gently. Locked. Hey, he called. My truck broke down. Can I use your phone? Every instinct told me to ignore him like I'd been instructed, but another part of me felt stupid for being paranoid. Maybe this was exactly what the owner meant about trespassers. I approached the lobby carefully and looked through the narrow gap beside the boarded window. The man outside stood under the parking lot light, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. Normal looking. No weapon, no mask, nothing threatening. But something felt wrong. He wasn't cold. It was freezing outside, but he stood perfectly still without shivering. Then I realized something else. There was no truck, no car anywhere. The man suddenly looked directly toward the tiny gap I was peeking through. I stepped back immediately. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. A knowing one, like he already knew I was there. He knocked again. Louder this time. I know somebody's inside. I backed away from the lobby. The knocking continued for another minute. Then it stopped completely. I waited. Silence. After several minutes, I checked again. The parking lot was empty. No footsteps. No engine. Nothing. At 1:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text message. Do not look out the second floor windows. I stared at the message. No name attached. No explanation. I typed back, "Who is this?" No reply. I tried calling the number. Straight to voicemail. I suddenly didn't want to be in that building anymore, but I also didn't want to go outside. So I stayed in the break room with the door locked. At around 2 a.m., I heard movement upstairs. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. I sat frozen in my chair listening. The building had supposedly been empty except for me. The footsteps crossed the second floor overhead, then stopped directly above the break room. Silence. Then a dragging sound, like furniture being moved. I grabbed a flashlight and forced myself into the hallway. Hello? No answer. I climbed the stairs carefully. The second floor was dark except for faint moonlight leaking through gaps in the boarded windows. The hallway looked different somehow. One of the doors labeled "Do Not Enter" was open now. I was certain it had been closed earlier. Inside was an empty office. Nothing unusual except for one thing. The carpet showed deep marks like something heavy had recently been dragged across it. The trail led out into the hallway. I followed it with the flashlight. It ended at another door near the corner of the building. Unlike the others, this door had an actual lock installed recently. New metal, fresh screws. I tried the knob. Locked. From inside the room, I heard breathing. I stepped backward immediately. Not loud breathing, just slow, calm inhaling. Someone was inside. Then came a soft knock from the other side of the door. 3 taps. Exactly like the front entrance earlier. I ran downstairs. I didn't care how stupid it looked. I locked myself inside the break room again and called the number from the listing. Straight to voicemail. I sent a message. There's someone else in the building. The response came almost instantly. Stay downstairs. What is this place? No reply. Then another sound echoed through the building. A door opening upstairs. Followed by footsteps again. But this time there were 2 sets. Not one. I shut off the break room light and stayed completely silent. The footsteps moved slowly across the second floor, then stopped. A few seconds later, I heard the unmistakable sound of someone descending the stairs. 1 step at a time, the old wood creaked with each footfall. I held my breath. The footsteps reached the first floor, then stopped outside the break room door. I could see the shadow beneath it, completely still, no movement, just standing there. My phone vibrated in my hand, so suddenly I almost screamed. Another text. Whatever happens, do not open the door. The shadow remained outside. Then came a voice. Soft, calm. Hey. Adult male. Different from a man outside earlier. You shouldn't be in there. I didn't answer. A light knock touched the door. We're trying to leave. I stayed silent. The voice sighed softly, then said something that made my blood run cold. He didn't tell you what this building was, did he? Silence. Then another voice farther down the hallway shouted. Check the lobby. Footsteps moved away from the door immediately. I waited several seconds before slowly peeking through the tiny wire glass window beside the break room entrance. The hallway was empty, but at the far end near the lobby, I saw movement. Flashlights. At least 3 people. All adults. All moving through the building quietly like they already knew the layout. One of them suddenly turned toward my hallway. I ducked back instantly. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. Another text arrived. Go to the basement. I typed back immediately. There's no basement. 3 dots appeared. Then, there's now. Before I could process that message, the power went out. Every light in the building died at once. The silence afterward felt alive. Then somewhere upstairs, someone started laughing. Not loudly, just a low, exhausted laugh. Like this had happened before. I turned on the flashlight and opened the break room door carefully. The hallway was pitch black. I could hear distant movement near the lobby. Metal scraping. Whispering. I moved toward the back stairwell instead of the main hall. At the end of the corridor, I found something I swear had not been there earlier. A maintenance door slightly open. Concrete steps descended into darkness beneath the building. Basement. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to go down there, but I heard voices getting closer from the lobby. So I went down. The air below smelled damp and stale. The basement ceiling was low with exposed pipes overhead. Old storage shelves lined the walls. Most were empty, except one section. Dozens of old monitors sat stacked together. Security monitors. I aimed the flashlight at them. Every screen was black except one. The live feed showed the lobby upstairs. 3 people moved through it, carrying flashlights. One stopped directly beneath the camera and looked upward, at the monitor, at me. Then the screen went black. A loud bang echoed above. One of the upstairs doors had just been kicked open. I backed deeper into the basement. That was when I noticed another room at the far end. Steel door, padlock hanging open. Inside sat rows of folding chairs facing a white wall, as if meetings had been held there, or presentations. But what terrified me were the photographs taped to the wall. Hundreds of them. Pictures of adults, people sitting in cafes, walking to cars, unlocking apartment doors, carrying groceries, all taken from a distance. Watched, tracked. One photo showed the man who had knocked on the front entrance earlier. Another showed the man who hired me, together, standing outside the same building during daylight. My mouth went dry. This wasn't security work. I had been left there intentionally. But for what? A distraction? Bait? I suddenly heard footsteps descending into the basement. Fast. I shut off the flashlight. Darkness swallowed everything. The footsteps reached the bottom. A voice whispered, "I know you're down here." Not angry, almost amused. Another person entered behind him. I could hear them moving slowly between shelves, searching. Then one of them said quietly, he used the listing again. The other answered, told him not to. A third voice suddenly shouted from upstairs, "He's gone." The footsteps below stopped. Then all 3 people began moving quickly back toward the stairs. I stayed hidden another 10 minutes before finally creeping upstairs again. The lobby door stood wide open. Cold air drifted inside. The parking lot was empty. No van, no cars, no people, nothing, except for one thing. A folding chair now sat directly in front of the entrance. On the seat rested an envelope with my name written across it. I never told anyone there my name. Inside the envelope was the remaining $300 and a note. "You stayed longer than the last one." I left immediately. I drove straight to the nearest police station. I told them everything. The listing, the building, the people, the basement, the photos. The officers listened carefully. Then one of them asked for the address. I gave it. He frowned, then left the room. 10 minutes later, he returned with another officer. They asked me to repeat the address again. I did. The second officer looked confused. There's no building there anymore. I argued with them. I had just been there. They finally drove out with me. I followed the patrol car back through the industrial district. But when we reached the address, my stomach dropped. The building was gone. Not abandoned. Gone. An empty fence lot. sat there instead covered in cracked asphalt and weeds. According to the sign near the road, the structure had been demolished almost 2 years earlier after fire. I remember standing there in silence while cold wind moved through the fence. The officers clearly thought I was mistaken, or lying. Then one of them noticed something near the gate, a folding chair, sitting alone in the middle of the empty lot. On the seat rested my flashlight, the same one the man had handed me earlier that night. The officer picked it up carefully. Wrapped around the handle was fresh masking tape. Written on it in black marker were 4 words: reliable, stayed awake all night. The police searched the lot thoroughly. Nothing else was found. No vestment, no building, no evidence anyone had been there recently. The online listing had disappeared too. Deleted, no account history, no payment records, nothing traceable. For a while, I convinced myself there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe the building existed farther down the road, and I remembered wrong. Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe someone had staged everything as some kind of sick prank. But that explanation stopped working 3 months later, because another listing appeared. Different account, different city, same blurry parking lot photo, same wording, night security position, cash paid daily, stay until sunrise, and at the bottom, need someone reliable. I found a listing on a Tuesday night, right after my landlord told me my rent was going up again. It was under the rooms available section of an online classified site. The title was simple: private room, no deposit, quiet house, adults only. I clicked it because of the price. $400 a month, utilities included, no deposit, month to month. In my city, that was almost suspiciously cheap. The photos showed a small bedroom with beige walls, an old wooden dresser, a twin bed, and one narrow window looking out at a fenced backyard. Nothing fancy, but clean enough. The rest of the pictures showed a kitchen, a hallway bathroom, and a living room with plastic still on the couch. The description was short. Room available immediately. Quiet adult household. No parties. No overnight guests. Must be respectful. Prefer someone who works outside the home. Cash only. At the bottom, in all caps, it said, "Do not apply if you sleepwalk." I laughed when I read that. I thought it was just one of those weird things people put in rental listings because they had one bad roommate before. No pets, no smoking, no sleepwalkers. It sounded ridiculous, but the price was real and I needed a place fast. So I messaged the account. "Is the room still available?" The reply came almost instantly. "Yes. Can you view tonight?" I checked the time. It was 9:46 p.m. I almost said no, but I was scared someone else would take it. I asked if tomorrow would work. The person replied, "Tonight is better. House is quiet after 10. Something about that sentence felt strange, but not strange enough to stop me. I asked for the address. It was only 20 minutes away, in an older neighborhood full of one-story houses, chain-link fences, and cars parked on lawns. Before I left, the person sent one more message. "Park on street. Do not knock. Text when outside." That was the first real warning. I ignored it. When I got there, the house looked exactly like the pictures, except darker. The porch light was off. Every window had heavy curtains drawn shut. A large wind chime hung near the front door, but there was no wind. I parked across the street and texted, "I'm here." A minute passed. Then the front door opened. A woman stepped onto the porch. She looked to be in her late 50s or early 60s. Adult, tired looking, wearing a long sweater and slippers. She lifted one hand and motioned me over. I crossed the street with my phone in my hand. She didn't smile. "You came alone?" I said yes. "Good." That should have bothered me more than it did. She opened the door wider. Shoes off. I stepped inside and removed my shoes by the entrance. The house was painfully quiet. Not normal quiet. Not peaceful quiet. It felt like the kind of quiet people create when they are hiding from something. The living room looked untouched. Plastic-covered couch. Dusty television. No family photos. No decorations except one frame print of forest trail hanging crooked above the couch. The woman led me down a hallway. The room is here. She opened the bedroom door. It was exactly like the pictures. Small, clean, bare. The bed was already made with a gray blanket folded tightly at the corners. I stepped inside and looked around. The window faced the backyard. The glass had a small crack in one corner. There was a closet, but it had no door, just a curtain pulled across it. I asked if other people lived in the house. The woman nodded. 2 other renters, both adults, both quiet. Are they home? She paused. Yes. I waited for her to say more. She didn't. Then I noticed something above the bedroom door. A small metal hook screwed into the frame. Below it, on the inside of the door, was a sliding latch, the kind people install on bathroom doors. But this latch locked from the outside. I pointed at it. What's that for? The woman looked at it like she had forgotten it was there. That was here before. Does it lock from the outside? It doesn't matter. We don't use it. I wanted to believe her. I asked about the rule in the listing. The sleepwalking thing. For the first time, her face changed. Not fear exactly. More like irritation. We had problems before. What kind of problems? Someone got confused at night. I laughed a little, trying to make the conversation normal. I don't sleepwalk. Good, she said. Then you'll be fine. She showed me the bathroom, kitchen, and laundry area. Everything was clean, but there were odd details. The kitchen knives were locked in a glass cabinet. The hallway bathroom mirror had been removed, leaving a pale rectangle on the wall. Every interior door had a rubber wedge sitting beside it, and all the smoke detectors had small pieces of tape over the tiny lights, as if someone didn't like them blinking in the dark. I asked when I could move in. Tomorrow, she said. Then she looked directly at me. Actually, tonight, if you have your things. I didn't. She seemed disappointed. I paid the first month in cash the next day. No lease, no receipt, just a handshake and a key. I know how stupid that sounds now, but when you're desperate and something seems like a solution, you don't always see the trap. You see the rent you can afford. You see the extra money you might save. You see yourself finally getting ahead. I moved in that evening with 2 suitcases, a backpack, and a box of kitchen items. The woman watched me carry everything from my car. She didn't offer to help. She just stood in the doorway, barefoot, holding a mug with both hands. When I brought in the last suitcase, she said, "Quiet hours start 10. I nodded. No cooking after 9. Okay. No guests. I understand. She glanced down the hallway. And if you hear anything at night, stay in your room. I smiled weakly. Old house. She didn't smile back. Stay in your room. The other renters didn't introduce themselves. I saw one briefly around 8:30 p.m. An adult man, maybe late 30s, stepping out of the bathroom. He had damp hair, tired eyes, and moved like someone trying not to make noise. I said hello. He looked at me for half a second. Then he looked past me toward the living room and whispered, "Don't leave your door open." Before I could respond, he disappeared into the room across the hall. The second renter I never saw that night. I only heard a call from behind a closed door at the end of the hall. At 10 p.m., the house changed. The woman turned off every light, except a small lamp in the living room. Then I heard her walking down the hallway, one slow step at a time. She stopped outside each bedroom door. First mine, then the man's, then the room at the end. At each door I heard the same sound. A light tap, not a knock, more like one fingernail against wood. Tap, pause, tap. Then she went back to the living room. I sat on my bed, staring at the door. At 10:17, something scraped lightly against the bottom of my door. I froze. There was a shadow in the gap. Someone standing outside. I didn't move. The shadow stayed there for almost a full minute. Then a whisper came from the other side. "Are you awake?" It was the woman. I didn't answer. After another few seconds, the shadow moved away. I barely slept. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Sunlight came through the cracked window. Birds moved along the fence. Someone had made coffee in the kitchen. The woman was sitting at the table. reading an old paperback book. She looked up as I entered. Sleep well? I lied. Yeah. She watched me pour coffee. Good. Some people have trouble the first night. The man from across the hall came in a minute later. He avoided looking at either of us. His hand shook slightly as he poured water into a glass. The woman said, "You were noisy last night." He froze. "I wasn't. You opened your door." "No, I didn't." She slowly closed her book. "I heard it." He set the glass down without drinking. "I didn't open my door." The woman stared at him. The kitchen went silent. Then he left. I told myself it was none of my business. That was the second mistake. The first week passed without anything major happening. The house had a rhythm. Everyone left for work early. Everyone returned quietly. The woman stayed home most days. She collected rent in cash, kept the house spotless, and watched old cooking shows with the volume almost muted. But at night, the rules became stranger. At 10, lights out. At 10:15, the hallway check. At random times, soft footsteps, whispers, the faint drag of something being pulled across the floor. Once, around 2 a.m., I woke to hear someone crying quietly in the bathroom. Not sobbing, just soft, exhausted crying. I stepped toward my door, then remembered what the man said. "Don't leave your door open." So I stayed inside. In the morning, the bathroom floor was perfectly dry. No one mentioned anything. On the 8th night, I found the first note. It had been pushed under my door. A small piece of notebook paper folded once. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, were 5 words. "Do not answer questions." I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it again and hid it in my backpack. At breakfast, the woman asked, "Did you find anything under your door?" I almost dropped my coffee. "What?" "Sometimes papers blow in from the hallway." I forced a laugh. "No." She looked at me for too long, then said, "Good." That night, I pushed my suitcase against the door. Not enough to block it completely, just enough to make noise if someone came in. Around 1 a.m., I woke to sound. Not footsteps, a key turning. My bedroom lock clicked softly. Then the knob moved. The suitcase shifted. Whoever was outside stopped. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The knob slowly returned to place. Then a whisper came through the door. "You moved something." I said nothing. The voice whispered again. "You're not supposed to move things." In the morning, the woman acted like nothing had happened. I wanted to leave, but I had nowhere to go. My old place was already rented. Hotels were too expensive. And part of me kept trying to make it make sense. Maybe she was mentally unwell. Maybe she checked on renters because of past issues. Maybe the other tenants were exaggerating. Then I found the closet. Not my closet. The locked closet in the laundry room. I noticed it because the woman guarded that area constantly. If anyone did laundry, she sat nearby. If someone walked too close to the hallway past the washer, she appeared from nowhere. But one afternoon, she left the house. First time I'd seen her leave. Since moving in, the man from across the hall watched through the blinds until her car disappeared. Then he came straight to my room. He didn't knock. He whispered through the door, "Now." I opened it. His face was pale. "What?" "Laundry closet." I followed him down the hall. The renter from the end room was already there. An adult woman, probably in her 40s. I had only glimpsed her once before. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and a nervous habit of rubbing her thumb against her palm. The man had a small screwdriver. He worked at the cheap lock on the closet door. I whispered, "What are you doing?" The woman from the end room looked at me, finding out if she still has them. "Has what?" The lock popped. The man opened the door. Inside were shelves. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I did. Phones, wallets, medication bottles, keys, work badges, small personal items in labeled plastic bags. Each bag had a room number and date. My stomach turned cold. On the middle shelf was a plastic bag with my room written on it. Inside was a copy of my driver's license, a spare key for my key ring, and a printed screenshot of my original message from the classified site. I whispered, "How did she get this?" The man grabbed my arm. "She takes things while you sleep." I pulled away. No, I would wake up. The woman from the end room shook her head. "Not always." That was when we heard a car door outside. The man slammed the closet shut. We scattered. I barely made it back to my room before the front door opened. The woman called from the living room. "Everyone home?" No one answered. She walked down the hallway, slowly, past my door, past the man's, past the room at the end. Then she stopped outside the laundry room. Silence. A minute later, she said, "Who opened this?" Nobody spoke. Her voice changed. Not louder. Worse. Calmer. "Who opened my closet?" That night, she didn't do the usual hallway check. Instead, she sat in the hallway. I could hear the chair creak. She had dragged one from the kitchen and placed it outside our rooms. Every so often, she whispered something too low to understand. At 3:12 a.m., the woman from the end room screamed. It was short, cut off almost immediately. I jumped out of bed. The man across the hall shouted, "Don't open it." But I did. I opened my door just enough to see. The hallway was dark except for the woman's small flashlight on the floor. The chair was knocked over. The end room door was wide open. The woman who owned the house stood in the doorway, holding the rubber wedge. The renter from the end room was inside, sitting on the bed, shaking. The homeowner turned toward me. Her face was calm. Too calm. She tried to leave in her sleep. The renter shook her head violently. I was awake. The homeowner smiled. "You don't remember." Then she looked at me. "Go back to bed." The next morning, the end room was empty. The woman said the renter had moved out early. I asked where she went. She found somewhere better. The man across the hall wouldn't come out. I knocked softly. No answer. Then a note slid under his door into the hallway. I picked it up. It said, "She did not move out." That was enough. I packed while the homeowner was in the backyard. I didn't care about the rent. I didn't care about the deposit I never paid. I shoved everything I could into my suitcases and moved toward the front door. The moment I touched the deadbolt, the homeowner's voice came from the kitchen. "Going somewhere?" I turned. She stood there holding her mug. I forced myself to stay calm. I got called into work. With suitcases? I said nothing. She stepped closer. "You agreed to 30 days. "No, I didn't." "You paid for 30 days. "That doesn't mean I have to stay." She tilted her head. "You people always think leaving fixes things." I reached for the door again. The deadbolt wouldn't turn. I looked down. A second lock had been installed above it. From the outside, the keyhole faced the porch. I backed away. "What is this?" The homeowner sighed. "Protection." "Open the door." "You're upset." "Open the door." She took one step forward. From behind me, the man across the hall suddenly opened his door. He threw something down the hallway. A chair leg. It hit the kitchen wall hard enough to startle her. "Run," he shouted. Then he slammed into his own door from inside, over and over, making as much noise as possible. The homeowner turned toward him. I didn't think. I grabbed my suitcase and ran down the hall toward the back door. It was locked too, but the kitchen window above the sink was old. I climbed onto the counter, shoved it open, and forced myself through. I dropped into the side yard hard enough to twist my ankle. Behind me, the homeowner screamed my room number. Not my name, my room number. I limped to my car and drove straight to the police station. They came back with me. The house was quiet. The homeowner answered the door calmly and told him I was unstable, behind on rent, and trying to cause problems. She said all renters were adults and free to leave. The officers asked to speak with the man across the hall. The homeowner said he was at work. They asked about the woman from the end room. She said she had moved out. They asked to see the rooms. She let them. My room was empty. Not just empty of my things. Empty like no one had lived there. The bed was stripped. The dresser drawers were open. The hook above the door was gone. The latch had been removed. Fresh paint covered the frame. The laundry closet was also empty. No phones, no wallets, no plastic bags, nothing. The homeowner stood beside the officers with her hands folded, looking wounded, like I had insulted her. Without proof, there wasn't much they could do. I left that day and never went back. For weeks, I watched the classifieds. The room listing disappeared, then reappeared under a different account. Same bedroom, same cheap rent, same sentence in all caps. Do not apply if you sleepwalk. I reported it. It vanished again, then came back 2 weeks later. New photos, new wording, quiet adult home, safe place for someone starting over. That line made me sick, because that was exactly who would answer. Someone desperate, someone tired, someone who needed cheap rent so badly they would ignore the strange rules, the cash-only demand, the late-night viewing, the locked doors, and the little voice in their head telling them not to go inside. Months passed. I moved into a studio apartment I could barely afford. I changed my phone number. I stopped using online classifieds entirely. Then one night, I received a message on a new account I had created only for job searches. No profile picture, no name, just one sentence. You left something in your room. Attached was a photo. It showed the beige bedroom, the gray blanket, the cracked window, and on the bed, sitting neatly in the center, was my old backpack. I had not left it there. It had been in my closet at my new apartment. I checked immediately. My closet door was open. The backpack was gone. Inside the photo, on the wall above the bed, someone had taped a fresh piece of paper. The handwriting was shaky. Not hers. The man's. It said, "Room available soon." I moved again after that. I don't know what happened to the man across the hall. I don't know what happened to the woman from the end room. I don't know how many adults answered that listing after me. I only know the ad still appears sometimes. Never for long. Always under a new account. Always too cheap. Always urgent. And always with one strange rule that sounds funny until you understand what it really means. Do not apply if you sleepwalk. Because in that house, they don't want someone who gets up at night. They don't want someone who might wander into the hallway. They don't want someone who might see the closet, or the locks, or the people who are not allowed to leave. They want someone desperate enough to move in fast, quiet enough not to ask questions, and tired enough to sleep through anything. The ad was for a free piano. That was what made me click. Not cheap, not best offer. Free. The title said, upright piano. Must pick up tonight. Heavy. Bring truck. I had no business owning a piano. I lived in a small rented duplex, worked long hours, and had barely enough room for furniture I already had. But I had played when I was younger, and for years I told myself I would start again someday. Most people say that about things. Someday I'll learn. Someday I'll fix it. Someday I'll be the person I'm meant to become. The picture showed an old upright piano sitting against a wall in what looked like a vacant house. Dark wood, yellow keys, a little scratched, but beautiful in a sad way. The description was short. Previous tenant left it. House sold. Need gone tonight. No holds. Free if you move it. There were 3 photos. The first showed the piano from the front. The second showed the side, with a few moving blankets folded nearby. The third was blurry, taken from farther away. In that one behind the piano, I could see a hallway. At the end of the hallway was a closed door. For some reason, that photo bothered me. Not enough to stop me, just enough that I noticed it. I messaged the seller. Is the piano still available? The reply came less than a minute later. Yes. Can you pick up tonight? I asked if it was on the first floor. Yes. I asked if there were stairs. No stairs. I asked if it played. The seller responded. Some keys work. Then another message. Must be gone before midnight. It was already 8:30 p.m. I should have ignored it. Instead, I sent a message to someone I knew from work, asking if he could help move a piano for cash. He was an adult, strong, and owned an old pickup truck. He replied with a laughing emoji, then asked how much. I told him I'd give him $50. He said yes. I messaged the seller back. We can be there around 10. The seller sent the address. It was in an older neighborhood near the edge of town, where houses sat far apart under large trees and streetlights were scarce. Then came one more message. Do not park in driveway. I asked why. No answer. At 9:45, I met my coworker at a gas station nearby. We bought rope, gloves, and 2 cheap flashlights because neither of us really knew what we were doing. He joked that if the house looked haunted, he was charging double. I laughed. I wish I had taken that as a warning. When we reached the address, the house was dark except for one light glowing in the front room. It was a single-story brick house with overgrown shrubs and a for sale sign lying face down in the yard. The driveway was empty, so was the street. We parked at the curb like the seller asked. My co-worker looked at the house and said, "You sure this is legit?" I said, "It's just a piano." That sentence sounds stupid now. We texted the seller that we were outside. The front door opened almost immediately. No one stepped out, just the door opening into darkness. My coworker looked at me. Nope. I tried calling the seller through the app. No answer. Then a message came in. Doors open. Piano is in front room. I am not there. My coworker stared at my phone. Then who opened the door? We both looked at the house. The door stood wide open. No movement inside. No sound. I sent back. Someone opened the door. The reply came. It sticks. Wind opens it. There was no wind. My coworker said, "I don't need $50 that bad." And he was right. We should have left. But then I looked through the doorway and saw the piano. It was exactly where the photos showed it, just inside the front room. Beautiful dark wood, waiting. I told myself we didn't have to go far inside. We could grab it, roll it out, load it, and leave. The door had opened by itself. But old doors did weird things. Houses shifted. Latches failed. That was how I explained it. We walked up the porch. The boards creaked under our weight. Inside, the air smelled stale like dust and old carpet. The front room was mostly empty. No couch, no tables, no curtains, just a piano against the wall, a cracked ceiling fan, and a lamp sitting directly on the floor with no shade. The lamp was plugged into an extension cord running down the hallway. That was the only light in the house. My coworker stepped inside first and said, "Let's make this fast." I agreed. The piano had small wheels, but they barely moved. One was jammed sideways. Digging into the floor, we tried, pushing it. It shifted an inch and made a deep wooden groan. Then a note fell from the music stand. It landed at my feet. I picked it up. It was a piece of notebook paper folded once. Written on it in black marker were the words, "Do not play after dark." My coworker laughed, not because it was funny, because he was uncomfortable. Okay, that's cute. Somebody thinks they're funny. I turned the paper over. There was more writing on the back. Do not answer if someone plays back. I felt the room get colder. My coworker took the note from me and read it. Then he said, "We're leaving." I looked at the piano again. "Let's just get outside." "No, we're leaving." That was when one of the keys pressed down by itself. A low note sounded through the empty room. Not loud, not dramatic, just one dull, sick note. My coworker froze. I froze. The key slowly rose back into place. The house went silent. Then, from somewhere down the hallway, another piano note answered. Higher, farther away, but there was no second piano. My coworker whispered, "No." He walked backward toward the door. I followed. The front door slammed shut before either of us reached it. Not from wind, not from gravity. It shut hard. The lamp flickered. My coworker grabbed the knob and twisted. Locked. He yanked it again. Nothing. I pulled out my phone. No service. Not one bar. My coworker tried his. Same thing. Then the piano behind us played 3 notes. Slow. Careful. Like someone testing which keys worked. I turned around. No one was there. The keys were still. My coworker kicked the front door. Once. Twice. The frame shook but held. Then from the hallway came a scraping sound. The extension cord moved slightly, like someone had stepped over in the dark. We both looked toward the hallway. At the end of it, The closed door from the listing photo stood in shadow. It was open now, only a few inches. My coworker whispered, "There's someone in here." I called out, "Hello?" No answer. "Who's there?" Nothing. Then a voice came from the hallway. Very quiet. Adult. Male or female, I couldn't tell. "Play it." My coworker shouted, "Open the door." The voice whispered again, "Play it." The piano played one note behind us. Then another. Then another. The same 3 notes. My coworker picked up the floor lamp and held it like a weapon. The room instantly became darker, shadows stretching across the walls. The extension cord pulled tight from the hallway, then went slack. The lamp flickered in his hands. He said, "Window." We moved to the front window. It had been painted shut. He hit it with the lamp base. The glass cracked but didn't break. He hit again. This time the lamp went out. Complete darkness. My coworker cursed. I turned on one of the cheap flashlights. The beam shook in my hand. The front window had wire mesh embedded in the glass. Old security glass. Not impossible to break, but not easy. The piano sounded again. This time a whole chord, low and ugly. From the hallway came a soft tapping, like fingernails on a doorframe. Tap, tap, tap. My co-worker grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the kitchen. There had to be a back door. We moved through the dark house with the flashlight beam bouncing ahead of us. The kitchen was empty except for old cabinets, a disconnected stove, and a folding chair sitting in the center of the floor. On the chair was a stack of printed online listings, all for free items. Free piano, free dining table, free refrigerator, free bedroom set, different accounts. Same address, same instruction. Must pick up tonight. My stomach tightened. At the bottom of the stack was a clipboard. Names, phone numbers, arrival times, notes. Came alone. Brought friend. Would not enter. Too suspicious. Strong enough to move piano. My co-worker saw it too. He whispered, "This is a setup." The back door was in the mudroom. It had 3 locks. All new, deadbolt, slide bolt, padlock loop screwed into the frame. But the padlock was on the inside. Locked. My co-worker searched the cabinets for something heavy. I tried calling emergency services. The call failed. Then we heard the front room piano again. But this time it was not random notes. It was a song. A slow, simple melody. The kind a child might learn first when taking lessons. Except the rhythm was wrong. Too slow. Too patient. My co-worker found a metal pan under the sink and started hitting the back door window. The glass cracked. Behind us, from the hallway, the voice whispered, "Not that way." We turned. The flashlight caught the edge of something moving out of sight. Not a full person, just fabric, a sleeve, gone around the corner. My co-worker charged after with the pan. I shouted for him to stop. He didn't. He ran into the hallway. I heard his footsteps, then a heavy thud, then silence. I stood in the kitchen, unable to move. "Hey!" I called. No answer. I stepped into the hallway. The flashlight shook so badly, the beam jumped across the walls. My coworker was gone. The pan lay on the floor. Beside it was his phone. The screen was cracked. A message had been typed into it, but not sent. Only 2 words. Behind piano. I turned slowly. From the front room, the piano music stopped. I walked back toward it. I don't know why. Maybe because the front door was there. Maybe because I thought he was hurt. Maybe because panic makes you do stupid things. When I reached the doorway, the piano had moved. It was no longer against the wall. It now sat several feet forward, angled toward the center of the room. Behind it was a narrow rectangular opening in the wall. Not a door, a hidden crawl space. The wallpaper around it had been cut cleanly. A cold smell came from inside. Damp wood, old air, something chemical. I heard my co-worker groan from inside. I dropped to my knees. The opening was just big enough for a person to crawl through. "Can you hear me?" His voice came back weak. "Don't come in." Then something dragged him farther away. Not fast, slowly, like whoever had him wanted me to hear it. I grabbed the edge of the piano and pulled. It barely moved. I shoved my shoulder into it. The wheels creaked. Behind me, the front door unlocked. One click, then another, then the third. I froze. The door swung open. Cold night air rushed in. Outside, the street was empty. My car was right there. The pickup was there. Freedom. Then my co-worker screamed from inside the crawl space. Not a bloody scream. Not graphic. A terrified adult man scream. And then his voice breaking, "Please don't leave me." I stood between the open door and the hole behind the piano. I still hate myself for hesitating. But I did. I hesitated. Then the piano played behind me. One key. The same low note as before. I turned. On the music stand, where the warning note had been, there was a new piece of paper. It said, "One leaves, one stays." I don't remember deciding. I remember running to my car. I remember fumbling with the keys. I remember looking back once and seeing the front door still open, the piano visible in the dark room, the crawl space behind it like a mouth. I drove until I had cell service and called emergency services. I told them everything. The address, the hidden space, my co-worker, the listing. Officers arrived quickly. I followed from a distance, parked down the street, shaking so badly I could barely stand. They entered the house. More officers came, then firefighters, then detectives. They found the crawl space. They found old phones, keys, wallets, shoes, a wall covered with printed messages from online classifieds. They found fresh drag marks. They found the back door locks. They found the clipboard. But they did not find my co-worker. No hidden tunnel, no basement, no exit, just a crawl space that ended behind the kitchen wall. Too small for anyone to stand. Too narrow for anyone to turn around comfortably. And empty. The piano was gone. That was what no one could explain. Several officers had seen it when they entered. It was in the front room. But by the time crime scene technicians photographed the house, it was missing. The floor showed deep grooves where it had been dragged. The grooves led straight to the front door, then stopped at the porch steps. No tire tracks. No footprints clear enough to use. Nothing. My co-worker's pickup was still parked at the curb. His wallet was still in the cup holder. His jacket was on the seat. The police questioned me for hours. I told the truth, or as much of it as I could. They didn't accuse me directly, but I saw it in their faces. Two adults went into an empty house. One came out, the other vanished, and the survivor told them a piano did it. No one says that out loud and sounds sane. The listing account disappeared. The messages vanished from the app 2 days later. The address had been owned by an investment company that claimed no knowledge of the ad. The house had been vacant for months. The for sale sign had been fake. The utility records showed power had been shut off weeks earlier, which meant the lamp in the front room should not have worked. For a while, the story became local gossip. People said my co-worker ran off. People said we staged something. People said I was hiding what really happened. His relatives wanted answers I didn't have. I wanted them too. Months passed. The house was eventually boarded up, then sold, then remodeled. Someone painted it blue and planted flowers in the yard, like that could fix what had happened inside. I stopped looking at online classifieds. I stopped playing music. I threw away the gloves we bought that night, but I kept seeing pianos in thrift stores, restaurants, church lobbies, school hallways. Every time, I felt that low note in my chest. A year later, I received a message from an account with no profile picture. It was on the same classified site. Even though I had deleted my old account, the message had no greeting, just a photo. The image showed an old upright piano sitting in a storage unit. Dark wood, yellow keys, scratched side panel. On the music stand was a folded note. I already knew what it would say before I zoomed in. Do not play after dark. Under the photo was a listing draft, not posted yet. The title read, "Free upright piano. Must pick up tonight. Bring help." Then another message came in. "Your friend still plays beautifully." I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then a video file appeared. I didn't want to open it. I did anyway. The video was only 9 seconds long. It showed the piano in darkness. No people, no movement. Then one key pressed down by itself. A low note played. After it faded, a voice whispered from somewhere behind the instrument. Not loud, not clear, but familiar enough to make my hands go numb. Don't come alone. I took the phone to the police. The account was gone before they could trace it. The video file corrupted when they tried to copy it. All that remained was a black thumbnail and an error message. I wish I could say I never saw the piano again, but that would be a lie. Every few months, a listing appears somewhere within driving distance. Different town, different account. Same blurry photos. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes it's $50. Sometimes it's listed as estate cleanout. Sometimes tenant left behind. But always the same condition. Must pick up tonight. Bring help. No holds. I report everyone. They disappear quickly, then come back somewhere else. I don't know what's inside that piano. I don't know who moves it. I don't know why it chooses some people and lets others leave. All I know is that when something valuable is free online, there's always a cost. Sometimes it's your time. Sometimes it's your safety. Sometimes it's the person standing beside you, helping you carry it. And sometimes the ad is not trying to sell you anything. It's trying to find out who you'll bring. The listing was for a used refrigerator. That was all. Nothing strange at first. No creepy wedding. No late night job. No free piano. Just a plain white refrigerator listed for a price low enough to make me click. I had been living in a small rental house for 3 months, and the refrigerator that came with the place was already failing. The freezer worked when it wanted to. The fridge section stayed cool only if I didn't open the door too often. Twice that month I had thrown away groceries because milk went sour and meat thawed just enough to make me nervous. The landlord kept saying he would look into it. That meant nothing. So I started searching online classifieds. Most used refrigerators were either too expensive, too far away, or looked like they had spent 10 years in someone's garage. Then I saw this one. Clean working refrigerator. Moving tonight. Must pick up. The picture showed a basic white fridge in a kitchen with yellow tile and old cabinets. It looked clean. Not new, but clean. The description said, works perfectly. Too big for new place. Cash only. First person who can move it gets it. The price was $80. That was the first sign something was wrong. A working refrigerator for $80 should have had 20 people fighting over it already. I messaged anyway. Is this still available? The reply came within seconds. Yes. Can you come tonight? I asked if it was still plugged in so I could see that it worked. Yes. I asked if it was on the first floor. Yes. I asked if there were stairs. No. Then the seller sent another message. Bring someone strong. It is heavier than it looks. That sounded normal enough. I called a guy I knew from work. Adult, reliable, owned a dolly, and always needed extra cash. He agreed to help for $40 and a meal afterward. We borrowed a small trailer from someone he knew and headed across town around 9:30 p.m. The address was in an older neighborhood where the houses all looked similar. One-story homes, chain-link fences, carports, porch lights with bugs circling underneath. The house from the listing sat at the end of a dead-end street. That bothered me, not because dead-end streets are scary by themselves, but because everything was too quiet. No dog barking, no televisions glowing through windows, no neighbors outside smoking or taking out trash. Just the house. The porch light was on. The kitchen light was on. The rest of the house was dark. We parked by the curb. I messaged the seller. We're outside. The reply came. Back door's open. Refrigerator is in kitchen. I am packing another room. My co-worker looked at my phone and frowned. Back door. I shrugged. Maybe easier to move it out that way. He looked toward the house. You talked to this person? Only messages. You have a phone number? No. He sighed and opened the trailer gate. This better not be one of those things where we get there and it's full of roaches. I laughed because that felt like the worst realistic outcome. At the time, I would have taken roaches. We walked through the side gate into the backyard. The grass was overgrown and damp. A narrow concrete path led to the back door, which stood slightly open. The kitchen light spilled across the steps. Inside, I could see the refrigerator. White, clean, exactly like the photos. I knocked lightly on the doorframe. Hello? No answer. I knocked again. We're here for the refrigerator. From somewhere deeper inside the house, a voice called back. Go ahead. Unplug it. Adult voice. Quiet. Hard to tell if male or female. My coworker leaned close and whispered, I don't like that. I didn't either, but the refrigerator was right there. We stepped into the kitchen. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and something metallic underneath it. Not strong, just faint enough to notice. The kitchen was old but spotless. Counters wiped clean. Sink empty. No magnets on the fridge. No trash can. No dishes. Nothing personal. It didn't look like someone was moving. It looked like someone had erased the house. My coworker tapped the refrigerator door. It hummed softly. Cold. I opened it. Cold air rolled out. Empty shelves. Clean drawers. A single cardboard box sat on the middle shelf. I stared at it. The box was taped shut and had black marker writing on the top, do not remove. My coworker saw it. What's that? I don't know. From deeper in the house, the voice called, leave the box inside until you move it. I froze. My coworker called back. Why? Silence. Then, it keeps the smell out. My coworker and I looked at each other. What smell? I called. No answer. He whispered, we're done. He was already reaching for the dolly when the voice called again. I'll take 20 off. That stopped me. $60 for a working refrigerator. I wish I could say I made a smart decision. I didn't. I told myself maybe the box had baking soda or old food. Maybe the person was embarrassed. Maybe we were being paranoid. I closed the fridge door and said, let's just move it fast. My coworker shook his head but didn't leave. We unplugged the refrigerator. The hum died. The kitchen went silent. Immediately, something inside the fridge shifted. A slow sliding sound, like weight moving from one side to the other. My coworker stepped back. What was that? Probably the box. Boxes don't slide like that. From the hallway, the voice said, tilt it backward, not forward. I turned toward the hallway. Can you come help guide it? Silence. Then, I can't. Why not? The reply came after a long pause. I'm not supposed to touch it. That was when my coworker said loudly, nope. He started walking toward the back door. The kitchen door slammed shut. Not locked, not pushed by wind. It slammed so hard the window in the top panel rattled. My coworker grabbed the knob. It turned. The door opened. Outside was still there. The yard, the trailer, the street. Nothing stopped us. That made it worse somehow. He looked back at me. We are leaving. I nodded. I was ready. Then my phone buzzed. The seller had sent a message. Please, I need it gone before he gets back. My skin prickled. Another message came in. He checks the fridge first. I showed my coworker. He stared at it, jaw tight. Who is he? I typed the question. The reply came. The owner. I wrote, are you in danger? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, not if you take it. I looked at the refrigerator. My coworker said, this is not our problem. He was right, but the voice from the hallway called out again, very softly, please. It sounded closer now, not down the hall, just around the corner. My coworker grabbed my shoulder. Do not be stupid. Then we heard a sound from outside, a vehicle engine, slow, approaching the dead-end street. Headlights swept across the backyard fence. The voice from the hallway whispered, he's early. The kitchen light flickered once, then went steady. My coworker looked out the back door. A dark pickup truck had stopped in front of the house. Its headlights stayed on. No one got out at first. Then the driver's side door opened. We couldn't see the person from the kitchen, only the shadow moving across the front window. The voice whispered, "Hide." My co-worker mouthed one word. "No." He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back door. We stepped outside. The moment my foot touched the back step, my phone buzzed again. Do not let him see you without it. I don't know why that stopped me. Maybe because it sounded less like a warning and more like a rule. From inside the house, a front door opened. Heavy footsteps entered. The voice in the hallway went silent. My co-worker whispered, "Move." But the footsteps stopped. A man's voice called from inside the house. "Adult, calm. You found someone?" No answer. The man walked slowly toward the kitchen. My co-worker and I stood frozen outside the back door, half hidden in darkness. The man entered the kitchen. I could see only part of him through the doorway. Work boots, dark pants, gloved hands. He stopped in front of the refrigerator. The room went quiet. Then he said, "It's still here." No one answered. He opened the refrigerator door. The cardboard box was still inside. He stood there looking at it. Then he slowly turned his head toward the open back door. Toward us. My co-worker bolted. He ran across the yard toward the side gate. I followed. Behind us, the man shouted, "Wait!" Not angry, not panicked, just loud enough to freeze the blood in my body. We reached the gate. It wouldn't open. The latch had been wrapped with wire. Fresh wire. My co-worker cursed and pulled at it. The man came out the back door. He did not run. He walked. That was worse. My co-worker yanked the wire hard enough to cut his palm. The gate opened. We spilled into the driveway and ran to the street. The trailer was still attached to my co-worker's vehicle. The dark pickup blocked us from pulling forward. The man stood in the backyard gate now. His face remained in shadow. He said, "You didn't take it." My co-worker shouted, "Stay away from us." The man lifted both hands, calm. "You came for the refrigerator." We changed our minds. I said, He looked at me. Even from the street, I could feel his stare. Then he said, "That's not how this works." The front door opened behind him. The person from inside the house stepped out onto the porch. I couldn't see much. Just a thin adult figure in dark clothes, standing behind the porch screen. The man turned slightly. "You posted it again." The figure did not respond. The man looked back at us, then smiled. "Fine, you can leave." My co-worker and I didn't wait. He backed the vehicle up over the curb, scraped the trailer against a mailbox, and drove out of the dead-end street. So fast the trailer fishtailed behind us. We didn't speak for several blocks. Finally, he said, "We are never doing that again." I agreed. I thought it was over. But the next morning, I woke up to a message from the seller. "Can you come back today? Daylight is safer." I blocked the account. 10 minutes later, another message arrived from a different account. "Please." He put something new in it. I blocked that one too. Then a photo came in from a third account. It showed the refrigerator, still in the kitchen. Door open, empty shelves. The cardboard box was gone. In its place was a black plastic bag tied shut. Under the photo, the message said, "It knows your car now." I reported the account and deleted the app. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then my refrigerator at home stopped working completely. Not strange by itself. It had already been dying. But when I opened the freezer, I found a cardboard box inside. Small, taped shut, black marker on top. "Do not remove." I backed away so fast I hit the counter. I had never seen that box before. I called my co-worker. He didn't answer. I called again. No answer. I drove to his place. His truck was in the driveway. The trailer was gone. His front door was unlocked. I didn't go inside. I called emergency services. When officers arrived, they searched the house. They found him in the garage, alive, sitting in a lawn chair facing an old refrigerator that had not been there before. He was awake, but he would not speak. His eyes were open. His hands were wrapped in towels. On the garage floor were scratch marks leading from the closed garage door to the refrigerator, as if something heavy had been dragged inside. The officers opened it. Empty. No shelves. No drawers. No light bulb. Just bare white walls inside and deep scratches all along the interior plastic. My co-worker kept staring at it. Finally, he whispered one sentence. It came back full. They took him to the hospital. He never explained more than that, at least not to me. The police asked me about the refrigerator listing. I showed them screenshots, but the accounts were gone. The address we had gone to was a vacant house in foreclosure. No registered residence, no active utilities, no lease, no moving records. The pickup truck had stolen plates. The neighbors said they had seen different people coming and going at night for weeks, usually moving large appliances, refrigerators, freezers, washer machines, anything big enough that 2 adults would have to carry it. The strangest part was the kitchen. When police searched the house, the refrigerator was still there, but it was unplugged, warm, empty, no cardboard box, no black bag, no fingerprints except mine and my co-workers, no evidence of whoever had spoken from the hallway, no evidence of the man in gloves. The back gate wire was gone. The front porch camera from a neighbor's house showed us arriving, showed us going around back, showed the dark pickup pulling in. Then the video glitched for 9 minutes. When it returned, our vehicle was already gone, and the pickup was gone too. Nothing else. I threw away everything from my refrigerator at home. I made the landlord replace it with a new one. For a while, I thought that would help. But every refrigerator sounded wrong after that. The hum at night, the click when it shut off, the tiny creak of plastic shelves expanding and settling. I would wake up at 2 a.m. convinced something had shifted inside. Sometimes I checked. Every time, nothing. Then one night, about 6 weeks later, my co-worker called me. I hadn't heard from him since the hospital. His voice sounded flat, empty. He asked if I still had the box. I said no. What box? The one from your freezer. I gave it to the police. He was quiet. Then he said, they didn't keep it. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? It's in my kitchen. I told him to leave the house. He said he couldn't. Why? He whispered, because it's humming. Then the call ended. I called emergency services again. By the time anyone got there, he was gone. His kitchen refrigerator was open. Inside was a cardboard box, still taped shut, still marked, "Do not remove." This time, the police opened it. I don't know exactly what they found. They never told me, but one officer who'd been kind to me before pulled me aside afterward and told me to stop answering classified ads completely. I asked if my coworker was dead. He said they didn't know. Then he said something I still think about every day. Some people use listings to sell things. Some use them to find people who are willing to enter strange houses. A month later, the vacant house burned. Electrical fire, according to the report. That would have made sense if the utilities had been connected. They weren't. After the fire, the lot was cleared. The house disappeared. The listing disappeared. The accounts disappeared. But used refrigerator listings still make me nervous, especially the cheap ones. Especially the ones that say, "Must pick up tonight." Because a year after everything happened, I saw one posted 20 miles away. Different neighborhood, different photos, same white refrigerator, same yellow kitchen tile, same old cabinets. The listing title said, "Clean working refrigerator, moving tonight, first person gets it." The price was $80. I clicked it before I could stop myself. There were 4 photos this time. The refrigerator door was closed in the first 3. In the 4th, it was open. Inside, on the middle shelf, sat a cardboard box. But the writing on it had changed. It no longer said, "Do not remove." It said, "Bring someone strong." I reported the listing. It vanished within minutes. That night, I unplugged my refrigerator just so I wouldn't have to hear it humming. I lay awake until sunrise. And just before dawn from my kitchen, I heard a soft click, the sound of a refrigerator door opening by itself. The ad was for a lock safe, not a gun safe, not one of those huge metal cabinets people keep in garages, just a small home safe, the kind someone might hide in a closet or under a desk. The listing title said, "Lock safe, no combination. Free if you can move it." That was what caught my attention. Free. I had been searching online classified for storage shelves, but I clicked the safe listing out of curiosity. There were only 2 photos. The first showed the safe sitting on a concrete floor in what looked like a basement or garage. It was dark gray, about the size of a microwave, with a keypad and a round handle on the front. The second photo was closer. There was a strip of masking tape stuck to the top. Written on it in marker were 3 words. "Do not open." The description said, "Left behind by previous occupant. Locked. Too heavy for me. No code. No questions. Pick up tonight only. No questions." That should have been enough for me to close the page. Instead, I stare at the photo. I don't know why it bothered me so much. Maybe it was the tape. Maybe it was the fact that someone had written, "Do not open" on something they were giving away. Maybe it was the price. Free things online always look like opportunity until you remember strangers are involved. I messaged the seller. "Is the safe still available?" The reply came almost instantly. "Yes." I asked how heavy it was. 2 people. I asked if it was bolted down. No. I asked why they were getting rid of it. There was a pause. Then, "House clean out." A minute later, another message appeared. "If you want it, come before 11. It was already 9:20 p.m. I didn't need a safe. I didn't even own anything worth locking up. But I had this stupid idea that maybe there was something valuable inside. Jewelry, cash, old coins, something the previous occupant had forgotten. Everyone thinks they're too smart to fall for that kind of curiosity. They're not. I called someone I knew who helped with odd jobs sometimes. An adult guy from my building who had a hand truck and never turned down quick cash. I told him I'd give him $40 if he helped me move a safe. He asked if it was legal. I said yes. He asked if it was heavy. I said probably. He asked if there might be money inside. I said maybe. That got him interested. We borrowed his hand truck and drove out around 10. The address was in a part of town where older houses sat close together, many converted into rentals. Narrow driveways, overgrown hedges, porch lights with dead bugs inside them. The house was at the end of a short gravel lane behind another house. I almost missed it. It looked empty. No porch furniture, no curtains, no mailbox name. A single bulb glowed above the side entrance, attracting moths that circled it like ash in slow motion. We parked behind the house. I messaged the seller. "We're here." The reply came. "Use side door. Safe is downstairs." My helper looked at me. "Downstairs?" I checked the listing again. It had not mentioned stairs. I typed, "You said 2 people. Is there a basement?" The reply, "Only 6 steps." That was a lie. There were more than 6. I know because I counted later. Before we even touched the door, the side entrance opened from inside. No one was there, just darkness beyond the threshold. My helper shook his head. "Nope, that's not normal." I called into the doorway. "Hello." A voice answered from somewhere inside. "Adult. Quiet. Down here." I could not tell if it was male or female. My helper muttered, "I hate when they don't come to the door." I should have agreed and left, but I was already imagining opening the safe. I imagined finding something old and strange, something worth more than the drive, something that would make the whole night feel like luck instead of stupidity. We stepped inside. The house smelled like dust bleach and damp wood. The kitchen was empty except for a roll of paper towels on the counter and a mop bucket in the corner. No food, no dishes, no magnets, nothing that made it feel lived in. A bare hallway led toward the front of the house. To the right was a basement door. It stood open. A weak light came from below. The voice called again. "It's down here." My helper whispered, "You go first." I looked down the stairs. They were steep and narrow, not 6 steps, 13. At the bottom was an unfinished basement with stone walls, exposed pipes, and a low ceiling. A single work light hung from a beam, swaying slightly even though the air was still. The safe sat in the middle of the concrete floor, exactly like the photo. Dark gray, keypad, round handle, masking tape on top. "Do not open." The seller stood near the far wall. Adult, thin, wearing a zip-up jacket and gloves. The hood was up even though it was warm inside. Their face stayed mostly in shadow. "Thanks for coming," they said. My helper looked at the stairs, then the safe. "You didn't say it was in a basement. It's only a few steps." "No, it isn't." The seller didn't respond. I asked, "Do you know what's inside?" "No." "Who wrote the tape?" The seller looked at the safe, then back at me. "I did." My helper laughed once. "Then why are you giving it away?" The seller's answer came too fast. "Because I don't want to hear." The basement felt smaller after that. I walked closer to the safe. There were scratches around the keypad, like someone had tried prying at it with a screwdriver. The handle had faint marks too. My helper crouched beside it. "Could probably get this open with tools." The seller stepped forward. "Not here." We both looked at them. They repeated, slower, "Do not open it here." I said, "We weren't going to." The seller stared at me. "Promise." That word made my skin tighten. Promise. Not please. Not don't. Promise. I said, "Sure." The seller kept staring. "Say it." My helper stood up. "Okay, this is weird." The seller ignored him. They looked only at me. "Say you won't open it in the house." I forced a weak smile. "We won't open it in the house." The seller nodded once. "Good." We tilted the safe onto the hand truck. It was heavier than it looked. Not impossible, but dense. Wrongly dense, as if the weight inside shifted slightly against the walls. When we angled it back, something knocked from inside. 3 slow taps. My helper froze. The seller did not react. I said, "What was that?" "Old contents." That sounded like someone knocking. The seller's head snapped toward me. "Don't say that." The basement went silent. The work light hummed. My helper whispered, "We're leaving this thing here." The seller reached into their jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I'll pay you $200 to take it." I stared at the envelope. "You're paying us?" "Yes." "To take a free safe?" "Yes." My helper said, "Make it 3. I looked at him like he was insane. The seller didn't hesitate. They pulled out another envelope. 3. That was worse than refusing. My helper looked at me and shrugged. "Let's get it out." Greed makes fear negotiate with itself. That is the only way I can explain why I helped. We dragged the safe up one step at a time. Each time it bumped, something inside tapped back. Not every step, only some. Step, thud, tap, step, thud, tap. My helper kept saying it was the shelves inside. But small home safes don't have loose shelves that knock on the inside in rhythm. Halfway up, the seller whispered from below, "Don't let it turn around." I looked over my shoulder. "What?" "Keep the door facing away from you." The safe door was facing upward toward us. My helper snapped. "You want to help?" The seller stayed at the bottom. "No." The safe slipped on the 10th step. The handle hit the wall. The keypad flashed red. None of us moved. The safe had not been plugged in. It was not supposed to light up. A soft beep came from inside the metal. Then another, then a third. The seller backed away so fast they hit the basement wall. My helper said, "What the hell is this?" The keypad flashed again. A message appeared on the tiny screen. Low battery. Then, enter code. No one touched it. The seller whispered, "Keep moving." We did. By the time we got the safe outside, both of us were sweating. The air felt colder in the yard. The gravel lane was empty. No traffic. No neighbors. The seller stayed in the side doorway, not stepping outside. My helper loaded the safe into the back of his vehicle with my help. The suspension dipped hard. The seller walked to the edge of the threshold and tossed the envelopes onto the grass. "Take those after you leave." My helper picked them up immediately. The seller said, "Wait." We froze. "If it opens," they said, "do not look at the paper first." I asked, "What paper?" The seller stepped backward into the house. The door closed. The porch bulb went out. My helper looked at the envelopes, then at the dark house. "I don't care what's in that thing. I'm dropping it at your place and leaving." That had not been the plan. Originally, we were going to take it to his garage, where he had tools. But after the house, He wanted nothing to do with it. I should have told him to take it to a police station. I should have left it on the curb. Instead, I said fine. We drove to my rental. The whole way, the safe made sounds. Not loud, not constant, just occasional shifts. A dull knock when we turned, a soft scrape when we stopped. Once, at a red light, my helper looked in the rearview mirror and said, "Did you see that?" I looked back. The safe sat under a moving blanket. Nothing else. What? The handle moved. I told him it was vibration. He didn't answer. When we reached my place, we put the safe in my garage. I paid him the $40 I promised. He kept the seller's envelopes. I asked if he was really going to keep that money after everything. He said, "I earned it." Then he left. I stood in the garage alone with the safe. The tape on top was peeling at one corner. "Do not open." I thought about calling someone. Police, a locksmith, anyone. But then the safe beeped. The keypad lit red. "Enter code." I backed away. The screen stayed on for 10 seconds, then went black. I did not sleep that night. The garage was below my bedroom, and every sound traveled to the floor. At 1:17 a.m., I heard one knock. At 2:06, 3 knocks. At 3:30, a scraping sound, like metal dragging across concrete. I checked the garage camera from my phone. The safe had moved. Not far, maybe an inch, but I knew where we left it, and it was not there anymore. I turned off the app and stayed in bed until sunrise. The next morning, I called my helper. He answered on the 4th ring. "Did you open envelopes?" I asked. Silence. Then he said, "Why?" "Just answer." He breathed heavily into the phone. Mine had cash. "Both." Long pause. "No." "What was in the other one?" He didn't answer. "What was in it?" "A photo." My stomach dropped. "Of what?" "My garage." I closed my eyes. He continued, voice lower now. "From inside." "What do you mean inside?" "Inside the garage. From the corner by the water heater. It was taken last night while I was out helping you." Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then he said, "There was writing on the back." "What did it say?" "Wrong house." That was when the safe beeped below me again, loud enough to hear through the floor. My helper heard it over the phone. "What was that?" "The safe. Get rid of it." "I know." "No. Now." The call ended. I called a locksmith. I did not tell him the whole story. I said I bought a lock safe and wanted it opened. He arrived around noon. Adult man. Professional. Normal. He looked at the safe, then at the tape. "Do you want me to keep it closed or open it?" "Open it." He chuckled. People always say that. He tried a few standard methods first. Nothing worked. The keypad was dead now. He drilled near the lock. The safe made a sound, not from the drill, from inside, a soft exhale. The locksmith stopped. "Did you hear that?" I said no. I lied because I wanted him to keep going. He drilled again. The safe beeped. The screen lit up. This time, instead of enter code, it displayed. Waiting. The locksmith stepped back. That's not normal. The handle turned by itself. Half an inch. Then stopped. The locksmith packed up his tools. I asked what he was doing. He said, "I'm not opening that." I offered to pay extra. He said, "Call the police." Then he left without charging me. That should have been the end, but I still had the safe. I called the police non-emergency line and explained that I had picked up a suspicious lock safe from an online listing. 2 officers came by. They were polite, but I could tell they thought I was embarrassed about buying stolen property. They asked where it came from. I showed them the listing. Gone. The account had been deleted. I showed them the address. They searched it. No current listing. No associated name. I told them about the seller paying us. I told them about the messages. I did not tell them the safe moved. I did not tell them about the knocks. I did not want to sound insane. One officer looked at the tape and said, "You opened it?" "No." "Good." That surprised me. He took photos of the safe. Then he went quiet. The other officer asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he asked me, "Did the seller mention previous occupants?" "Yes." The officers looked at each other. They took the safe. I asked what was inside. They said they needed to inspect it. They loaded it into their vehicle and drove away. For the first time since picking it up, I felt like I could breathe. That lasted 6 hours. At 9:48 p.m., someone knocked on my front door. 3 slow taps. I checked the peephole. No one was there. On my porch was a strip of masking tape. Fresh, stuck to the door, written on it in black marker. Property returned. I called the police again. Different officers came. They had no record of anyone bringing a safe into evidence. No report. No case number. No officers dispatched to my address earlier that day. I showed them the photos I had taken. The messages, everything. They took a statement. They looked concerned, but not enough, because the safe was gone. No safe. No crime they could prove. No seller. No account. Nothing. At midnight, my helper called. He was whispering. I hear it. Hear what? The safe. I sat up. What do you mean? It's in my garage. That's impossible. I'm looking at it. I told him not to open it. He laughed once. A small, broken laugh. I didn't bring it here. I said I was coming over. He said, don't. Then there was a beep. The same keypad beep. Through the phone, I heard his breathing stop. Then a metallic click. He whispered. It opened. The call disconnected. I drove over anyway. His garage door was open when I arrived. The lights were on. The safe sat in the center of the floor. Door open. Empty. No shelves. No contents. Nothing. My helper was gone. On the inside of the safe door, someone had taped a photograph. It showed me standing in my garage the night before, taken from behind the safe. Below the photo was a note. You looked last. I called emergency services. Police searched the house. They found no sign of forced entry. No sign of a struggle. His phone was on the workbench. His keys were still by the door. The envelopes of money were gone. The photo from his garage was gone. The only thing left was the safe. This time, police took it in front of me. I followed them to the station. I watched them unload it. I watched it go through the doors. I stayed there until someone told me to leave. 3 days passed. No news. No update. No sign of my helper. Then I received a message from a new classifieds account. No profile picture. No history. The message said, safe is available again. Attached was a photo. The safe sat on a concrete floor. Dark gray. Keypad. Round handle. Masking tape on top. But the words had changed. Now it said, ask what is inside. I drove to the police station immediately. They told me the safe had been transferred to another facility. Then they checked. It had not. There was no record of it after intake. The officer I spoke would look genuinely disturbed, but he still had no answer. That night, I saw the listing. Same category, different town, lock safe, no combination, free if you can move it. The description said, previous owner left it, no questions, pick up tonight only. There were 3 photos. The first showed the safe. The second showed the keypad. The third showed the inside. Empty, except for one envelope lying on the bottom. On the envelope, written in marker, was my address. I deleted every classifieds app one had, changed my number, moved out of that rental. But some things follow in ways you don't understand. About a month later, a package arrived at my new place. No return address. No postage mark I recognized. Inside was a small piece of masking tape stuck to wax paper. The message on it read, "You promised." I kept trying to remember exactly what I had said in that basement. We won't open it in the house. That was all. That was a promise. And technically, I hadn't broken it. But maybe promises don't care about technicalities. Maybe whatever was inside only cared that I wanted to know, because that was the truth. Even after everything, part of me still wanted to know. Part of me still imagined cash, jewelry, documents, a confession, something that would explain it, something that would make losing another person feel like part of a story with rules. But there were no rules, only listings, only curiosity, only strangers who invite you into dark houses, and ask you to carry away things they are too afraid to keep. I still see the safe sometimes, not in person. Online, it appears in different cities under different accounts. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes it says $50. Sometimes it says estate cleanout. Sometimes garage sale leftover. But the photos are always the same. Concrete floor, gray safe, masking tape, and a warning that changes depending on who looked last. The most recent one said, "Do not bring help." I reported it. It disappeared. Then, 2 nights later, I woke to a sound in my apartment, a soft electronic beep. I sat up in bed and listened. Another beep, then a metallic click. From my closet, I turned on the light. The closet door was closed. A strip of masking tape had been placed across it from the outside. I had not put it there. Written on it in black marker were 3 words. No questions now.